In this video, we're going to be reviewing the Ruger Mark IV 2245 LITE version. Why are we doing a lot of 22 reviews lately? Well, the 22 market has actually changed recently. As many of you probably know by going into your gun stores or even Walmart, 22 ammunition is now becoming more available at more reasonable prices. And it's been a number of years since that's happened. So since that time, there's been a number of different developments as well as improvements in a number of pistols. And much like myself, a lot of people are now asking, okay, now that 22s are more available at reasonable prices, what are some of the options out there on the market today? And that's why we're going to talk about the Ruger Mark IV here on the table. So just a little bit of background about the Ruger Mark IV series and the Ruger series. The Ruger Standard was the original Ruger that Bill Ruger had first produced dating back to 1949. It was based off of the Japanese Nambu pistol that he had a couple copies of from World War II. And when you look at the earlier version of the Nambu, you'll notice it's very similar to the Ruger Standard, which invariably grew into the Mark pistols, the Mark pistol line. But he developed it. It had a tapered barrel back then, a more slanted grip angle. And ultimately, as a result of that, the evolution went forward. It was arguably one of the most successful 22 pistols ever sold. And the evolution moved forward into the Mark I in 1950, the Mark II series that came out in 1982, the Mark III series in 2004, and then ultimately the Mark IV series in 2016. A number of the changes over the years, of course, were the bull barrels, and then, of course, the frame changes, which we'll all talk about in a moment on the pistol. Now, looking at the pistol itself, you're going to see a number of features. I wanted to go through each one of these real quick to talk about why we're talking about this pistol. The first thing is, if you're familiar with the Ruger Mark pistols, you'll recognize the magazine. It's a 10-round magazine. Base plate is a little bit different because in this version of the pistol, there's actually a spring-loaded ejection pin here, which is pretty nice. So when you push the ejection port, it does assist that out of the frame. You'll also notice that the frame itself is actually marked or modeled after the 1911 model. So if you, for example, like the feel of a 1911 45 in your hand, you're going to love this pistol. This is one of the reasons why this feels so good in my hand, is the 1911 grip angle, as well as just the grip itself, which in this case you can see here is what it was modeled after, is exactly what I like in a pistol. It just feels perfect in my hand. So that is one of the changes you've seen with the Mark IV, is the option now to get the what's called the 2245 version, which is the polymer lower version that's again molded after the 1911. Now, looking at some of the other features here, if you're familiar with the old Mark series, there used to be a pin safety. Now it's an actual lever activated safety. You can see here on the pistol itself. And one of the changes about this, which some people will like and some people won't. Personally, I like the fact that I can easily activate it, similar to a 1911, although the activation takes place in the back as opposed to the front, is the fact that when you fire it, you'll notice in my hand, for example, when it's down to be fired, it rides right up against my thumb and how I hold the pistol itself. And over time, I've noticed that when I fire a number of rounds, it will actually activate the safety without me even knowing, until the point where I just can't pull the trigger anymore. And part of this is because it just easily slides as opposed to clicks, or has a more defined clicking motion here as opposed to just a standard ride up. So if you buy one of these, understand that you might at certain times when you're firing the pistol, you might think there's a trigger problem, but the reality is you're just riding up the safety like I did. So this is one thing I wish that Ruger would make this more positive as far as the activation of. But again, it's a good feature to have. Of course, you have your slide release, and then of course you have the trigger. Now, the trigger on this pistol is something that I'm going to be doing a second review on, just because I'm not a big fan of this trigger, and there's a reason why. Triggers are kind of a pet peeve for a number of manufacturers. When they build higher end pistols or higher end rifles, oftentimes they tend to skimp or not do as good a job on the pistol trigger. In this case, the trigger actually breaks pretty clean, but it's a hard pull. It's a hard pull, and especially if you're trying to shoot this for target shooting. Now, if it's something for example, just plinking or having fun with, you know, my SR-22s or you know, my M&P-22s, I don't mind as much. But on a pistol like this, I do, and I want to have a better trigger for it. And this is one thing that Ruger could get better on this pistol, is the actual trigger itself. Again, the break is clean, but it is a relatively stronger trigger pull than I would expect on a pistol. Now, of course, I just talked about the frame is polymer, which lightens the weight of the Mark IV. You'll also notice that there's some you know, some holes drilled into the upper frame assembly here. The upper assembly is actually a anodized aluminum, and then you'll notice if you look closely within the holes here, you're going to see the barrel coming through, and it's almost like a pencil barrel profile within the upper assembly. And starting from the front of the upper assembly, first off, you have the cap. And the cap unscrews. Now, one of the benefits of this pistol, one of the things you're going to like the most if you have a suppressor, is shooting this as a suppressor-fired pistol. And one of the reasons why is there's this little tapered bushing here. And this bushing not only allows you to easily hold the cap on without it working off, but it also works the same thing with the can. So, for example, many of the 22s that I fire, you'll have to constantly check, for example, not only the barrel adapter on the front, for example, with the M&P-22, there's a barrel adapter here, but then you also have to check the suppressor when you're firing it. And as you know, that can be pretty annoying after time, especially if this gets really hot, because you have to wear gloves and things of that nature. But one of the things about the Mark IV I love is the fact that because of this bushing that they have on here, I can fire this all day without having to constantly check the actual suppressor to see if it's actually onto the barrel itself and hasn't worked itself free. And of course, the challenge with it working free on many pistols are, if it works itself free too far off, you could get a baffle strike and do a lot of damage. So in that case, this is one of the things that really shines about the Mark IV, is not only did I do a test with a whole bunch of different ammunition types on this pistol, I also tested them with the suppressor, and again, no problems whatsoever. So again, if you're looking for a suppressor-fired 22 pistol, for this reason alone, this is one of the best options on the market today, and largely having to do with the options that you have here today, with the ability to lock down, if you will, onto the to the cap. You'll also notice when you look closely at the end of the barrel, you can see, for example, how big the actual pencil barrel is relative to the framing itself. So it's relatively small, but it cuts back on the weight within the frame. You have a set of adjustable sights. The front sights can easily be taken out by an Allen wrench screw. The back sights, of course, are adjustable as well. However, they are black on black sights. Now, you're going to notice mine aren't black on the front sight, because one of the things that I do, I don't personally like to shoot black on black front and back sights. Some people do. I personally don't. The reason why is the majority of the time when I'm firing a pistol like this, I'm shooting within a range, which means there's very little, if any, ambient light coming in, which makes it very hard to pick up the sights, especially the front sight on the pistol. So what I usually do in those cases are, I will usually either make a white, I will whiten the front sight post, and one of my favorite things to use is the Rust-Oleum appliance touch-up paint. Or if I've got a relatively larger front sight blade, which I do here, what I'll do is I'll use a red as the base, and then use a small dot for the white in the upper middle there to make that stand out as well. So it depends what you want to do, but you don't necessarily have to change out the sights if you don't like the black on blacks. You can do touch-up painting like I do, and again, it works pretty well. If, however, you do want to order aftermarket sights, there are tritium front sights that you can get here as well as on the rear. You can replace both the fronts or the front and back sights. You can order them all through Ruger's website, which is great. But that might be a moot point if you want to run, for example, a red dot on the pistol, which if you buy the pistol, in this case with the Picatinny rail already installed. So again, this might be a moot point if all you're going to ultimately do is fire a red dot off of the pistol. My first testing that I did was simply iron sights and not the red dot sight. So I left the rail as is on the pistol itself. Now, looking back, there's a couple things on the pistol. One is you'll notice that the serial coating on the pistol is not on the frame itself, but it's actually on the barrel housing, in this case here. You'll also notice that unlike some other pistols where the action and the slide move, in this case it is not the actual slide but a bolt. if you will. So it's the bolt reciprocating within the actual assembly as opposed to the whole upper assembly, which again might be good or bad for your red dot. In this case, you're typically putting a lot less motion onto the red dot on this pistol, firing this type of activity or this action than you would, for example, on other types of pistols you would mount a red dot onto. Now, one of the greatest features about this pistol, and one of the reasons why I bought this pistol, having owned an older Mark version pistol, is the cleaning of the pistol. Now, if you own a 22 pistol, you'll know that 22s are generally very dirty to fire. One of the things I don't like to do is I don't want to have to clean every one of my pistols every time I go shooting, but with 22s I usually do. It's just a dirty pistol, and that's what you run into. That's one of the trade-offs you have with shooting cheaper ammunition through the pistol. And if you've owned one of the older Mark pistols or any of the competing variants out there, you'll know that cleaning inside these tighter spaces can be very difficult at times. And it's just not fun to do, to work with. And that's where the Ruger Mark IV shines. The reason why is they now include an assembly, and a quick assembly where you can take the action off. So in this case, for example, if I cock the pistol, move it into safety, there's a release button here. And the release button allows the top to break off from the frame here. And then there's a pivot point right here. And this is a hardened pivot. And then you'll notice here you have the upper assembly. Now to clean the upper assembly, it's literally this easy. You can pull out the bolt, and then I have direct, easy access to the feed ramps, to the chamber face, to the ride area, and then of course to the bolt face. So this makes the pistol very desirable to me. This is similar to what I like about, for example, Glocks, which have now been in large part copied by many other gun manufacturers, is the simple fact that they're easy to break down and clean. And this is something you now have with this pistol. So in this case, in order to reassemble it, I just put it back in and lock it up, and then I'm locked back in and ready to go. So that is one of the best things about the Mark IV pistol that I like, that convinced me that unlike previous Mark pistols that I owned, what were the things that I really liked about it? Again, the simplicity of the breakdown and cleaning, the fact that it has a 45 1911 grip texture, as well as the fact that I can shoot suppressor fire very effectively out of the pistol, are some of the things I really love about it. Now, I mentioned earlier some of the options you have with the pistol, one of which is you can replace the front sight or the front and back sight. It's not hard to do. There's little screws that go into the assembly. The trigger. Now, one of the things I'll be doing on a subsequent review, a Chapter 2 review, will be the replacement of the trigger with a Volkerson. So Volkerson makes an accurizing kit. This is from their website. You can usually get these on Midway USA, currently at around $120. But what I'm going to be doing on the Chapter 2 is talking about the review of installing the Volkerson and what the difference is as far as accuracy on the pistol, and then of course running a red dot off of it as well. But again, my testing today was only based upon the iron sights. Looking at the ergonomics of the pistol beyond the 1911 that we talked about, as far as weight. So the weight of the LITE pistol comes in at 1 pound 9 ounces. So it's basically a little over 1.5 pounds. So you compare that, for example, to the Ruger SR22, which is just a little over 1 pound at 1 pound similar to the M&P 22. And then of course the Smith & Wesson Model 63, which comes in at almost exact weight of the Ruger Mark IV. So there's a little bit more weight with the Mark IV, but again, it's simple physics, right? The heavier the pistol, typically the more stable it will be for you. So there's a trade-off between this pistol, for example, and other variants of the Mark IV series. For example, another variant that's out there that's popular is the Tactical. And so instead of the LITE, it is the Tactical version, where instead of having an anodized aluminum upper assembly, it is a steel assembly. And unlike this, which weighs at about 25 ounces, the Ruger Tactical comes in at 33 ounces. They're both the same barrel length at about 4.4 inches, but the difference with the Tactical is it also has a lower rail as well. It comes in a little bit heavier. So if you're, for example, only looking for this pistol for target shooting and target shooting alone, your better option might be the Tactical. I was a little torn as to which one I wanted, but again, to me, there was a trade-off between between the weight, which I wanted it to be a little bit less in weight, so that I can at least carry it around if I go into backwoods or I go hunting, and that little bit of weight is difference enough for me to want to go to move forward with this version. So as far as models that are out there, I alluded to earlier, there's the tactical, which had the steel barrel model. There's also different colors within the LITE series that you're going to see. This is the bronze, which I really liked, but there's also like purple and red and some other different colors that you can get. And there's also the traditional standard tapered barrels. So there's a number of different options that you have out there with the Ruger. Now, as far as accuracy is concerned, one of the things that I did with the accuracy is I ran some tests here, and I noticed, for example, since I was running both non-suppressored and suppressed fire, I was getting a little bit more accuracy out of the suppressor fire. So in this case, for example, this is my 20-foot grouping. Again, this is with the stock trigger, iron sights. And then, of course, I did it with the suppressor as well, and you'll notice that my suppressor groups are a little bit tighter. You'll also notice that my point of impact is about an inch higher with the suppressor than it was non-suppressed as well. So again, it raised my target sight a little bit. Now, the suppressor that I was running here is an ASC Prodigy, and the ASC Prodigy weighs an additional 3 ounces, so this is adding a little bit more weight and more stability onto the pistol when I'm firing it as well. But in this case, this is my 20-foot groups, and then moving out to 30-foot, it opened up a little bit more here. And then 50-foot, that's again probably a lot of me because there wasn't much variance between the 50-foot group as well as the 70-foot groups. So the 70-foot groups, again, I ran non-suppressed as well as suppressed. So you can kind of see the type of accuracy you can receive, or at least I receive, with the iron sights and the stock triggers out of here. So how does this compare, for example, to other pistols that are out there that, for example, many of them that I have on the table today? So the first one we're going to look at is for example, the Ruger SR22, which is this pistol right here. And again, this isn't a target type pistol, but you can see the type of accuracy you can receive from 30-foot to 30-foot. Again, not that big of a difference out of that pistol. And then the Model 63, which is the Smith & Wesson revolver. I actually shot a little bit tighter group out of the Smith & Wesson Model 63 compared to what I received out of the Mark IV. And moving out to 50 feet, again, a little bit tighter groups as well. So I'm actually a little bit more accurate with the revolver, but of course the trade-off with the revolver is this pistol is a little bit more heavy, and of course it's a revolver. So that's one of the reasons why, you know, I've done reviews on them, because they all have different applications, but this is what I achieve out of here. Now, of course, Smith & Wesson is known for making very accurate triggers as well. So again, I'll be comparing my results when I do the round 2 or the second group of results out there. So what are some of the alternatives out there? As we talked about, there are other tactical as well as light versions and standard versions of the Ruger. Again, you gain about 8 ounces on the tactical, which again might be better for your accuracy. Also standard target hunter versions, you name it. Other versions out there, like the Smith & Wesson recently came out with the Victory, which is a competitor to this, as well as the Browning Buckmark, which has been out for a long time. And one of the things I love about the Buckmark more than anything is the trigger. The Buckmark actually did something right. Browning did something right with the Buckmark, where they actually made the trigger correct for the pistol, not as heavy as the trigger pull that I receive on this pistol. So as far as utility, what is this pistol good for? Well, it's great for plinking, packing, young shooters, just having fun, even small game hunting, but most importantly, some suppressor fire. So if you're going to shoot this out with suppressor fire, it's very important as well. Another thing you're going to notice as a tip is if you've ever fired a Mark pistol, you'll notice that the spring loading action right here, this pin, is small and very flush into the magazine. So if you've ever loaded and fired a number of rounds out of these, you'll notice, especially with the tension of the spring, it can really be hard on your fingers after a while to load. So if you're going to move forward with a Ruger, I would suggest picking up a couple different speed loader options to help you. In this case, HKS makes a Model 22B, as well as the Hijack Quickie loader are great options as well. And basically what these allow you to do is to assist your fingers in loading The magazines, the quickie loader works in a similar manner as well. The only advantage with the quickie loader is you've got a little thing here that you can clip on, for example, to your bag in case you're worried about losing your mag loaders all the time. This might be something you maybe want to put onto a bungee cord with your shooting bag and be able to use it as well. But if you are going to shoot the Rugers, I definitely suggest getting one of these because your fingers will thank you after a while. It's just not fun to shoot these. Another way to do that, by the way, if you're ever at a shooting range and you're up against the benches, you can always push up against the wood on the bench, and then you can ride this up as you load this spring as well. So that's another way to work around this that I've done in the past, where if I didn't have a speed loader, I would just press it up against the bench and then with my left hand, and then slowly load it with my right hand. So that's another little trick that you can use with the Ruger Mark IVs as well. So overall, it's a great pistol. I bought it for a number of different reasons: the 1911 style, the suppressor lock nuts, and of course the fact that it's easy takedown and cleaning, which I love. It is relatively lightweight, so there's a balance between my accuracy and the weight of the pistol. It's relatively compact, fun to shoot, and it's been out for a long time. So if you have a chance, or you're in the market and considering a 22 semi-auto action in the market, definitely take a look at the Ruger Mark IV for all the reasons that I mentioned below. So it's a great pistol, and I highly recommend it. If you like this video or you like our channel, please subscribe on YouTube, and thanks for watching.